be making an adorable mermaid inspired balloon garland. What you will need, so I have tons of balloons here. As you can see, I've already separated them into size and color piles. A balloon mermaid tail that I'm going to use for the end of my garland. I have scissors, some rubber bands to attach my clusters. I also have glue dots just for another option. You can use rubber bands or glue dots, and sometimes I use both if I just want to add a single balloon. Balloon ribbon, and also a balloon pump. Plus any other type of decor or embellishments you prefer. I have small 5-inch balloons, I have 10-inch balloons, and I also have 12-inch balloons. Solid colors, I have some pearlized balloons, and I even have some confetti filled balloons. So a little bit of everything. You could make your own, or you can buy a kit offline. I start off with a kit and I add in different colors that I want to add to it. You could definitely add in 18-inch balloons, 20-inch balloons, whatever you prefer. Alright, let's get started. I'm going to start separating the balloons to create my clusters. I like to see what colors I have, what sizes I have, and I like to have those already together. That way once I start inflating the balloons and tying them together, I don't end up with a ton of 10s or too many 5s or anything like that. So I like to make my little clusters and set them aside and then inflate them. That way I know exactly how many clusters I have and what I'm working with. Or you don't have to do this step, but I feel like it's just an extra helpful step. Alright, so once we have all of our clusters together, we're going to start inflating our balloons. So I'm going to start by taking 2 balloons and inflating them and tying them together in a double knot. I'm going to repeat this step with 2 more balloons, and then I'm going to connect all 4 balloons to make a balloon cluster. So I just placed the 2 balloons together, twisted a couple of times, and there you have it. So I'm going to make several clusters, and then we're going to connect all of the clusters together to form one large balloon arch. Alright, so I'm going to make different sizes and different styles of clusters. I'm going to use 10-inch balloons, 5-inch balloons, a mixture of balloons, whatever style you prefer. And I prefer to do it that way because I feel like it makes the balloon arch look so cute and fun. But I do make balloon arches with all 10-inch balloons or a uniform size of balloons. It gives you different looks. And also I press the balloons before tying them just to make sure they stay nice and round. Alright, so I'm going to get all of my clusters made, and then we'll put them together to form our arch. Alright, so I've made quite a few clusters. They're looking so cute and precious already. I just want to give you a different angle on how I tie my balloons and create my clusters. So I just tie it in a double knot to tie 2 balloons together, and I do this twice, and I intertwine 4 balloons together to make a cluster. Again, I use 4 of the same size balloons, but then I also mix it up and add in like 1 large and 3 small, or 2 large and 2 small, and go from there. so this is what it's looking like. So cute and precious already. And I have this cute little cluster, and then I like to have some balloons just in pairs because sometimes you don't need 4 balloons, but 2 can fit in an empty space perfectly. I have some large clusters, I have some combination clusters, the little small cute clusters, which I think are so adorable, some 12-inch clusters and 10-inch clusters, and combination clusters. So we have a little bit of everything going on here. All sizes, small pairs, large pairs. They're always nice and handy to fit into certain spaces. They fit perfectly. Alright, so now that we have all of those ready, it is going to make creating this balloon garland a breeze. So I'm going to start with a 12-inch cluster, just because it's going to make for a nice base. I'm going to take my balloon ribbon and wrap it around the center of my cluster and tie it in a knot a couple of times, just to make sure it's nice and secure. And then from here, I'm just going to pick and choose what cluster I want to add next. And I'm going to add the clusters by attaching them and using the balloon ribbon to create the figure 8 around a new balloon and an old balloon. And that's how I'm going to attach my old cluster to my new cluster. And I'm going to make sure I give that ribbon a nice little tug a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and tight. And then you can always rotate the balloons and adjust it and move it around as you see fit. And then you just continue on from here, adding in your clusters, adjusting and maneuvering, and just going with whatever you like and whatever looks good to you. I prefer to start with the mainly larger or the larger and smaller clusters, and I save the very small 5-inch clusters for my finishing touches and also for the end of my garland, because it's going to start nice and wide and then it's going to slowly get smaller as we make our way to the top and the tail. Alright, so I'm going to just continue adding again in the figure 8, wrapping it in an 8 around an old balloon and a new balloon, giving it a nice tug. And I do that a couple of times and it makes it pretty secure, but I can still kind of twist and rotate and move it and adjust it as I see fit. Alright, I'm going to get a nice amount done and show you what it's looking like. Instead of placing the next cluster on top of the previous cluster, I'm going to place it to the side of the previous cluster, but still connected just the same in the figure 8 around a new balloon and an old balloon and pulling it nice and tight. And the next cluster is going to go beside the previous cluster. So I'm going to start adding the clusters to the side of the previous cluster as opposed to on top of the previous cluster. So if you want it to go up higher, then add it on top. If you want it to curve, then add it to the side at a slight angle or diagonal. And then just continue attaching it. If you run out of balloon ribbon, all you have to do is tie the new balloon ribbon to the old and just continue on. Once I've got my main garland pretty much completed, I'm going to start over at the beginning, taking a pretty decent size cluster, tying my balloon ribbon around it, and then adding more clusters on top of the previous cluster, connecting them with the figure 8 around an old balloon and a new balloon, depending on how wide you want the base of your balloon garland to be. If you want to make an extra wide balloon garland, then you can pretty much take it all the way up as high as you'd like for it to go. But I want mine to be pretty wide at the base and slowly, gradually get thinner. And then we're going to start adding our rubber bands to our smaller clusters because this is going to add into the finishing touch. So I just wrap the rubber band around the cluster and you can see it makes a pretty handy little bonus cluster, which is so cute and adorable. And I did add one of these clusters to my smaller balloon garland, and I think it just looks so cute and precious. Now my smaller garland is good and ready to go. I've added a few clusters to it and it looks nice and full. And now we're going to add it to the base of our main garland, just to really amplify it and make that base nice and wide and full. I'm going to go ahead and attach the base of my balloon arch to the backdrop. So what I do is I just take some of the balloon ribbon and I tie it in a knot, make it a nice loop, and I just hook it around the top of the balloon arch. If you're going to use a wall and command hooks, you can do that as well. Same method, just tie the ribbon in a loose loop around your arch and you can just hook it on wherever you need to. It's really neat and handy. Alright, so I have my main garland hung on the backdrop. And what I'm going to do is take my smaller garland and just kind of rotate it in and play around with the balloons and see which way it fits in perfectly, because I don't want it to look like two garlands beside each other. I want it to mesh very well and look like one huge garland. So I just kind of play around with it and move balloons around and see how it fits the best. And then again, I just connect it with the figure 8, old balloon to a new balloon, and I do this in a couple of spots just to make sure it's nice and secure. You can even use rubber bands to connect some of the balloons. So once I'm happy with how that looks, I'm going to add more rubber bands to my smaller clusters, and then I'm going to go throughout the garland and just add them where I see any gaps or spaces, or if I just want a balloon cluster, I can add that. You see, I can pretty much add the cluster wherever I'd like. So I just play around with it, see how it looks different ways. Don't be afraid to kind of rotate and move things around and switch it out. Again, for this specific wreath, I did want to add a few more clusters, but sometimes I don't add clusters at all. Wrap the rubber band around a balloon carefully, or you could even make your way to the center and wrap the rubber band that way, but I prefer to just wrap it around a balloon because I can still kind of twist and rotate the little baby clusters. If you don't want two colors beside each other, you can just rotate it out and it's a quick and easy move. And you can even still use your balloon glue and attach a single balloon if you have a little space that you need to cover. And what I like most is you can modify it to fit you. You can make the base as wide as you'd like. You can make the balloon arch as tall and as flowy as you'd like. You can even take it to the side and back down on the other side. Get creative. But it's so cute, simple, and easy to make. Make it as wide and as large and as tall as you'd like. The color, the style, add in any additional embellishments you'd prefer. Don't be afraid to try new things and have fun with it.